All right, this next group of 5 carries a lot of volatility, in my opinion, where I could see them going up. I could definitely see some downside risk for all of these teams, maybe save your 15th ranked team here. But all right, 11 to 15. Indianapolis Colts, 12 Minnesota Vikings, 13 New York Jets, 14 Dallas Cowboys, 15 Green Bay Packers. I want to start at the top here, Scott, and ask you about the Colts because whoo, buddy, like I've been saying, I've got to try to talk myself down off the Indianapolis Colts because it is very easy to get excited about what they've got on paper. I'm the one that took Anthony Richardson in our mock draft. I expected to have to give Andy Behrens like a full justification for going Anthony Richardson, and I think the 6th round I ended up going with Anthony Richardson, but I love the receivers, the whole thing. I thought I was going to maybe have to be talked down from Colts optimism, but 11th overall team here, Scott. That is very bullish on the Colts.
And we've seen it. It's not unusual for if you land on the right quarterback. If you had Patrick Mahomes in the breakout year, if you had Josh Allen in the breakout year, if you had Jalen Hurts in the breakout year, a quarterback can be somewhat of a league winner too. We're so programmed that like, okay, in the NFL, it's all about the quarterback. In fantasy, the quarterback's the least important player. I think we've moved away from that when we see these the floor you get from a running quarterback, a quarterback who can score those cheap touchdowns. And we were starting to see Richardson really spread his wings before that early injury. I talked about Houston getting the 2 big decisions, right? Coach and quarterback. And I think everybody thinks that Shane Steichen was the right man for the Colts job. He had a great first year, and they kept it together, even with Richardson getting hurt and having to play Gardner Minshew the majority of the season. They were still a competitive team. And we saw enough of Richardson that it sure seems like he was the right pick. And what's he doing? He's handing off to Jonathan Taylor. He's throwing to Michael Pittman. The support guys are good. They got Mitchell in the draft, a speedster, indoor team, gettable division. It's obviously it depends on Richardson's development and depends on Richardson's health, but I'm ready to follow Shane Steichen into a burning building. And from what I saw the first month of last season, I'm pretty much there with Anthony Richardson too. And I'm encouraged that we're on the same page. As you said, you took him early in that mock draft that we did, and look for Andy Behrens' piece on that. I think you're going to do a podcast on it as well.
Yes.
And that's the great thing about, Matt, we do all these rankings. We talk about all this stuff theoretically. The great thing about drafting, that's when you figure the stuff out. Right. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, how do I really feel about this? A ranking is just a bunch of names on a paper. And then when the clock is ticking and you actually have to make a pick and put your name to it, or you're in a best ball draft and there's money involved and the fishbowl happens and it's like, okay, I'm drafting against the whole world and everything. That's when you find out sometimes how you feel about things. So maybe you learn something about yourself when you took Anthony Richardson. But I think this could be just one of these pairings. If 4 or 5 years go by, I'm going to be like, oh man, isn't the AFC sick of Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson just making them look bad? I think these guys could be going to the moon.
The high end of the range of outcomes here is so appealing with the Colts. Again, I don't want to keep referencing the mock draft because we are going to do a full podcast with that later in the week with Andy Behrens. But what I learned about myself in that draft, Scott, is that, when I'm sitting there in round 6 and I'm thinking, who's going to make a difference for me in fantasy this year? Is it Dalton Kincaid, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, Mark Andrews, Tank Dell, Keenan Allen? Those are the names that also came off after in the 6th round. No, those names are, I don't think, going to give me like the face melting upside that Anthony Richardson presents. Like, I'm trying to win the league here. I'm not trying to get a solid floor of like, well, running back's starting to dry up. Let me get one more pretty decent playable guy here. No. I think Anthony Richardson truly, again, it's a projection for sure because we didn't see it enough last year. We didn't see it from a full, even close to enough. But the brief glimpses of high-end processing and high-end offense, just working the offense and working within structure, that was there for Anthony Richardson. And they've just set him up to succeed, man. That receiver trio is so good. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, Adonai Mitchell, complementary skill sets, and the run game should be good. So I'm glad we're on the same page with the Colts.